The night air was still. The streetlights flickered, casting long shadows on the quiet neighborhood. Then, out of nowhere, a deafening crackle tore through the silence. A scream followed, a sharp, agonized cry that made my blood freeze. I turned the corner just in time to see my sister, Lisa, convulsing on the ground, her body jerking wildly as electricity coursed through her. Sparks crackled from the prongs of the taser lodged in her chest. Standing over her was a burly man in a cheap HOA uniform, his face twisted in rage. "You should have paid your fines," he barked, pressing the trigger again. Lisa's body stiffened as another jolt sent her into spasms. Her eyes rolled back, her lips trembling, her fingers clawing at the pavement. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then just as suddenly as it began, the shocking stopped. Lisa's body slumped. The HOA officer chuckled, adjusting his belt. "That'll teach you to ignore HOA rules." But then something changed. Lisa's twitching fingers tightened into fists. Her head lifted, slowly, deliberately. Her breath came in deep, controlled inhales. And then, through gritted teeth, she whispered, "You just made the worst mistake of your life." The officer smirked. "Yeah? And what are you going to do about it?" Lisa's lip curled into a smirk of her own. "You don't know who I am, do you?" She stood up, eyes burning like fire. The fear in the HOA officer's eyes was instant. Lisa wiped the blood from her lip and cracked her knuckles. "You tasered me over some stupid overdue fines?" She laughed, shaking her head. "Oh, this is going to be fun. It all started 2 weeks ago when Lisa got a notice in the mail. You have an outstanding balance of $275.49 for minor HOA infractions," she read aloud, rolling her eyes. "Failure to pay may result in penalties, including but not limited to legal action, home foreclosure, and property seizure." She scoffed. "They've lost their minds." I looked over her shoulder at the list of infractions. Grass 0.75 inches taller than HOA regulation. Christmas lights still up on January 2nd. Trash can left on curb 2 hours past collection time. "Are they serious?" I asked. "Completely," she muttered. "But I'm not paying a dime. I'll see them in court before they get a cent from me." Lisa wasn't just my big sister. She was one of the best lawyers in the state. And when Lisa took on a case, she won. She crumpled up the letter and tossed it into the trash. "Let them try something," she said. "I dare them." 2 days later, they tried. A second letter arrived, this one in bold red letters. "Final warning. Immediate payment required. Failure to comply will result in enforcement action." Lisa laughed. "Enforcement? What are they going to do? Send a SWAT team?" But something about the wording unsettled me. "Maybe you should just pay it," I suggested. "I mean, it's not that much." Lisa snorted. "That's what they want you to think. First, it's $275. Then it's $500. Then it's $1,000. Give them an inch, they take your entire house." I sighed, knowing there was no changing her mind. "All right, but don't say I didn't warn you." Lisa smirked. "Oh, trust me, they're the ones who should be worried." 3 days later, things escalated. I woke up to find a bright orange sticker on Lisa's front door. "Notice of violation. Immediate action required." It was stuck so firmly that Lisa had to scrape it off with a knife. "Unbelievable," she muttered. "I'm going to sue them for harassment." That same day, a strange black SUV was parked outside her house. The windows were tinted so dark that we couldn't see inside. "HOA goons," Lisa muttered. "I bet they're watching to see if I slip up again." For the first time, I started to feel uneasy. By the end of the week, the notices turned into threats. Lisa received a letter stating that a repossession team would be visiting to inspect the property. "That sounds a lot like breaking and entering to me," Lisa muttered, her eyes scanning the fine print. "These guys are getting desperate." That night, we heard strange noises outside. Footsteps, shuffling, a car engine idling nearby. Lisa grabbed her phone. "Time to put an end to this." She stormed outside, her phone camera recording. "Hey," she shouted, "you want to trespass on my property? At least have the guts to show your face." There was a rustle near the bushes. A shadow moved. Then silence. Lisa clenched her jaw. "Cowards. but I had a sinking feeling that they weren't done. Not by a long shot. The next day, Lisa went out to grab coffee. She never came back. I got the call an hour later. "This is county jail," the officer said. "We have Lisa in custody." My heart nearly stopped. What? What? Resisting HOA enforcement. I could barely believe what I was hearing. "You arrested her over HOA fines?" "Ma'am, she attacked an officer." That didn't sound like Lisa at all. I rushed to the station, only to find Lisa sitting in a holding cell, looking furious. "This is war," she growled. And war it became. Lisa was released the next day, but things only got worse. The HOA began fining her daily for absurd reasons. Mailbox slightly dusty. $50 fine. Driveway crack visible. $100 fine. And then they made their biggest mistake. They sent their enforcer after her. A 6 feet 4 inches, 250-pound brute who thought a taser would scare her. He was so wrong. And now, as she stood over him, fire in her eyes, I knew. The HOA had no idea what kind of monster they just unleashed. The shock of seeing Lisa standing tall after that brutal taser attack left me frozen in place. The officer was still kneeling on the ground, his face pale, his hands shaking as he stared up at my sister. The smell of burnt rubber and ozone hung thick in the air, a reminder of what had just happened. Lisa wiped the blood from her lip, her eyes never leaving the man who had just tried to take her down. "Do you know who you're messing with?" she said again, her voice cold but full of fury. The officer's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. He seemed to be trying to find words, but none came. He scrambled backward, looking like he had just realized the gravity of what he had done. I didn't know. "You're just some," he stammered, but Lisa cut him off. "A lawyer," she finished for him, stepping closer. "A very good one. You think you can just electrocute me over a few fines?" She crouched down in front of him, her tone turning dangerous. "You'll regret this." The officer scrambled to his feet, backing away with his hands held up, the taser dangling uselessly from his side. "Look, I didn't know, okay? I was just following orders." Lisa's eyes narrowed, and she took a step closer. "Orders? What orders?" she asked, her voice laced with suspicion. The officer hesitated, then glanced nervously at his surroundings. He was clearly torn, unsure if he should say anything or remain silent. Finally, he muttered, "The HOA, they told me to enforce payment, whatever it takes." Lisa's expression darkened, but there was something about the way she was looking at him now, almost like a predator sizing up its prey. "Whatever it takes," Lisa repeated, her voice chilling. "You mean they told you to use force on me, to hurt me over some ridiculous fines?" Her eyes bore into his, daring him to deny it. The officer, sweating now, nodded quickly. "Yeah, they said you were trouble. A lawyer who would fight back. They didn't care how it happened, just that you paid up." Lisa stood up, taking, "Well, now they've gone and done it," she muttered to herself. "They've made it personal." She turned to me, her face softening for just a second. "Call the police," she instructed, her voice firm but oddly calm. "This guy assaulted me. I'm pressing charges." I didn't hesitate. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911, my hands trembling as I explained the situation. It was surreal talking about my sister being tasered like this. The police said they'd send someone right away, but I could already tell that this was going to escalate into something much bigger than I could have imagined. As I hung up the phone, I turned back to Lisa. She was still staring at the officer, her mind clearly racing. Her usual calm, collected demeanor had shifted into something else, something darker. "You know," Lisa said, her voice suddenly quiet, "this whole thing was meant to teach me a lesson. But it looks like it's the HOA that needs to learn something." The officer, realizing he was no longer in control of the situation, shifted uneasily on his feet. He stammered, I'm sorry, all right? I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just doing my job." "Your job," Lisa repeated, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Tell me, what kind of job asks you to assault someone over fines? What kind of people give those kinds of orders?" His silence was all the answer she needed. Lisa took a step back, her eyes flicking toward the horizon, like she was already formulating her next move. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't just angry. She wasn't just going to sue them or take them to court. Lisa had something bigger in mind, something far more dangerous. "I'll handle this," she said, her voice growing colder. "But first, I need a favor from you." I blinked, unsure if I had heard her correctly. "A favor?" I asked, my voice shaky. "Yes." Lisa's gaze locked onto mine, the fire in her eyes still burning brightly. "I need to know everything about the HOA. Everything. I want names, addresses, files, the works." "Lisa, what are you planning?" I asked, my heart racing. "This is going too far." Lisa shot me a look, and I immediately knew there was no stopping her. "It's already too late. They made their choice. Now I'm going to make mine." The officer, still standing there nervously, opened his mouth to say something, but before he could, Lisa raised a hand, silencing him. She turned away from him and motioned for me to follow. I had no idea what was coming next, but I could tell by the steely determination in her eyes that the HOA was in for a world of trouble. It was late afternoon by the time we reached the first of many HOA properties that Lisa wanted to investigate. The house was large, tucked away in a gated community that reeked of wealth and entitlement. This, Lisa explained, was the head of the HOA, a man named Charles Dunford, a retired lawyer who had decided to dedicate his life to controlling the neighborhood. We parked a few blocks away and crept up to the fence that surrounded the house. Lisa was surprisingly quiet, moving with the grace of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. She pulled out her phone, quickly hacking into the HOA's systems, something she had done countless times before. It didn't take long for her to get the information she needed. "This is where it gets interesting," she whispered, holding her phone up for me to see. On the screen was a list of names, addresses, and even their personal phone numbers. The HOA wasn't just some group of faceless people enforcing rules. They were individuals, and now Lisa had their details. But just as she was about to say something, a car pulled up in front of the house. We ducked behind the nearest bush, hearts pounding. The last thing we needed was to be caught snooping around. "Get down," Lisa hissed. She was calm, but her fingers were already moving, tapping away at her phone again. The person getting out of the car was none other than Charles Dunford himself, the man who had been orchestrating this entire mess. Lisa's eyes locked onto him as he walked toward the front door. She said nothing, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. She was already planning her next move. "We need to get inside," she whispered. "Stay close." I nodded, my stomach twisting into knots. I had no idea what Lisa was about to do, but I knew one thing for sure. We were in deep now, and there was no going back. The air was thick with tension as we crouched behind the hedge, watching Charles Dunford unlock his front door. Lisa's fingers were still moving furiously on her phone, her eyes gleaming with something that made me nervous. I whispered, "Lisa, tell me we're not breaking in." She gave me a sidelong glance. "We technically won't be breaking in," she murmured, tilting her phone screen toward me. My stomach dropped. On her screen was a digital blueprint of Dunford's house, complete with security camera placements and a backdoor entry point. "You hacked into his security system," I hissed. Lisa smirked. "Not hacked, researched. He's lazy." His security camera password was 1234. HOA elitists think they're untouchable. Turns out they're just stupid. I swallowed hard. "Lisa, I don't like this. What if he catches us?" She gave me a look. "The real question is, what will we catch him doing?" Before I could argue, Lisa was already moving. She darted toward the backyard, keeping low, her movements fluid like she had done this 100 times before. I had no choice but to follow. The backyard was massive, perfectly trimmed hedges, a pristine swimming pool, and a ridiculous fountain in the center, like he thought he was some kind of king. Lisa pointed to a glass sliding door at the back of the house. "Unlocked," she whispered, smirking. "Rich people never expect anyone to mess with them." I swallowed hard, my heart hammering in my chest. "Lisa, we're going to get arrested. This is breaking and entering." Lisa rolled her eyes. "No, this is investigating." She slid the door open without a sound and slipped inside. I hesitated, my whole body screaming at me to run. But Lisa was already inside, moving toward the grand staircase like she owned the place. Cursing under my breath, I followed. The house was eerily quiet. Too quiet. The smell of expensive leather and old books filled the air. It was like stepping into a villain's mansion from a movie. Lisa moved like a shadow, scanning the room. She pointed at a large wooden desk in the corner. Bingo! She rushed over, booting up the computer that sat on top. I stayed near the door, my ears straining for any sign of Dunford. "Hurry up," I whispered. Lisa didn't answer. She was already typing furiously, navigating through files like she had done this 1,000 times before. And then she froze. "What is it?" I asked, stepping closer. She didn't speak. She just turned the screen toward me. My blood ran cold. On the screen was a list of names. Not just ours. Hundreds of names. Addresses. Bank account information. Employment records. Even private medical details. Lisa scrolled down. The list just kept going. "This isn't just about HOA fines," she murmured. And then we heard it. A voice. "You shouldn't be here." My heart stopped. We spun around. Standing at the top of the staircase, gripping a glass of whiskey in one hand and a gun in the other, was Charles Dunford. His face was unreadable, but his eyes burned. Lisa slowly straightened. "You really don't want to do this, Charles." Dunford tilted his head, amused. "Oh, but I do." He took a step down, swirling the whiskey in his hand. "You see, Miss Carter, I warned the HOA about you. I told them you wouldn't just roll over and pay like the others." But did they listen? No. Lisa crossed her arms, completely unfazed. "And what exactly are you hiding, Charles? Because that list? That looks very illegal." Dunford chuckled. "Oh, sweetheart, you have no idea how deep this goes." Another step down, then another. Lisa didn't move, but I saw her hand twitch. She was preparing for something. Dunford sighed. "I really didn't want to come to this, but you left me no choice." He lifted the gun. My breath caught in my throat. Then, crash! The front door burst open. Flashlights. Shouting. "Police! Drop the weapon!" Dunford barely had time to turn before 3 officers tackled him to the ground, knocking the whiskey and gun from his hands. I stumbled backward, gasping. Lisa, however, simply smiled. "Right on time," she said. I turned to her in shock. "You call the cops?" She shrugged. "Of course. I told you. I'm always one step ahead." Dunford roared, struggling under the officers. "You set me up." Lisa crouched down next to him. "No, Charles. You set yourself up. I just made sure everyone saw it." She held up her phone, showing a live video feed. She had recorded everything. Dunford's face twisted in fury. "You have no idea what you're messing with." Lisa smiled sweetly. "I guess we'll find out, won't we?" The officers hauled him up, cuffing him tightly. "Take him away," one of them ordered. Dunford snarled as they dragged him toward the door. But just before they stepped outside, he turned his head and hissed. "You think this is over? This is so much bigger than me." Lisa's smile didn't falter. "Then I guess I have more work to do." Dunford laughed, shaking his head. "You have no idea who's watching you now." With that, he was gone. The house fell into silence. I turned to Lisa, my legs still shaking. "Tell me we're done now. Tell me this is over." Lisa didn't answer. Instead, she picked up a document from Dunford's desk. She skimmed it quickly, and then her face changed. She looked at me, her hands gripping the paper like it held the secret to the universe. "This isn't over," she whispered. Her eyes flicked back to the document. "They're hiding something bigger." My stomach twisted. "Bigger than illegal data collection?" Lisa nodded slowly. Then, without another word, she handed me the paper. I read the heading, and my blood turned to ice. "Confidential. HOA blacklist operations." Lisa's jaw clenched. We just cracked open hell itself. The paper trembled in my hands as I read the words again, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Confidential. HOA blacklist operations." Lisa snatched the document back and skimmed through the contents, her eyes scanning the text like a machine. Her face remained unreadable, but I could see the fire behind her eyes growing. "This isn't just about fines," she muttered, flipping through the pages. "This is something much worse." I swallowed hard. "Lisa, what did we just uncover?" Lisa didn't answer. Instead, she read aloud. "Residents deemed problematic are to be monitored, fined excessively, and, if necessary, forcibly evicted, or driven into financial ruin through legal entanglements. I felt my stomach drop. They're targeting people? Lisa nodded grimly. Not just people, specific people. Lawyers, activists, whistleblowers, anyone who pushes back against HOA corruption. She flipped another page and froze. I leaned over her shoulder and immediately saw why. Subject, Lisa Carter. My breath caught in my throat. My sister's name was right there on her list. Next to it, there were notes. Status, priority target, actions taken, escalating fines, harassment, legal entanglements. Recommended next steps, enforcement action, potential financial ruination, emergency measures if non-compliant. Lisa let out a slow breath, gripping the paper so tightly her knuckles turned white. They wanted to ruin me, she whispered. I felt sick. Lisa, they were going to destroy your life over some stupid HOA rules. Lisa shook her head. No, not just that. They knew who I was. They knew I was a lawyer who wouldn't back down. That's why they came after me harder than anyone else. Then she flipped to the last page, and her face turned to stone. There were 5 names marked with a red X. Lisa traced the list with her finger. These people, they were on the HOA blacklist too. I frowned. What happened to them? Lisa clenched her jaw, then reached for Dunford's computer again. She typed in one of the names, her fingers moving with an eerie calm. Seconds later, the search results appeared. I gasped. Every single person on the blacklist had either lost their home, gone bankrupt, or disappeared entirely. Lisa clicked on the last name. A news article popped up. Local resident found dead in apparent suicide after HOA dispute. The room suddenly felt colder. I took a step back, shaking my head. Lisa, this isn't just HOA corruption. This is something else. Lisa's expression didn't change. This is a system, a machine designed to eliminate anyone who gets in their way. And then, before I could respond, the house phone rang. Both of us froze. It was an old-fashioned landline, one of those that no one actually used anymore. But it was ringing, the shrill sound cutting through the silence like a knife. Lisa's eyes met mine. They know we're here. The ringing stopped. Then, a voice came over the speaker. You should have left this alone, Miss Carter. My blood ran ice cold. Lisa didn't hesitate. She stormed over to the phone and picked it up. Who the hell is this? A pause. Then the voice chuckled. You're in over your head. Walk away while you still can. Lisa's grip tightened on the phone. Or what? Another pause. Then, a loud click. The line went dead. The silence that followed was suffocating. Lisa exhaled slowly, her mind clearly racing. They're watching. That means we're close. Close to what, Lisa? I snapped, my nerves finally breaking. These people are dangerous. What if they come after us next? Lisa turned to me, her face unreadable. They already have. And then, the front door slammed open. A shadow moved. Heavy boots thundered toward us. Down! Lisa shouted, grabbing me and pulling me behind the desk just as a figure lunged into the room. A massive man in tactical gear, his face covered by a ski mask. In his hands, a stun baton. Lisa barely had time to react before he swung. She ducked. The baton crackled as it missed her by inches. I scrambled backward, panic exploding in my chest. Who is this? Lisa didn't answer. She moved. She spun, grabbing a lamp off the desk and slamming it into the attacker's arm. He grunted, but barely stumbled. Lisa grabbed my wrist. Run! We bolted for the hallway, the man right behind us. He swung the baton again. BZT. It barely missed Lisa's head. We sprinted down the hall, my legs screaming in protest. Lisa grabbed a chair and threw it behind us. It crashed into the attacker's legs, slowing him down for just a second. We turned a corner. Another hallway. Then, bang. A gunshot. I screamed. Lisa yanked me into a side room just as a bullet shattered a vase where my head had been a second ago. They're trying to kill us. I gasped, clutching my chest. Lisa slammed the door shut, locking it. No, they're trying to shut us up. We heard heavy footsteps outside. Then Lisa pressed her back against the wall, breathing hard. She pulled out her phone and quickly typed something. What are you doing? I whispered. Lisa didn't look up. Getting us an escape plan. The sound of wood splintering sent terror flooding through me. The door was breaking. The attacker was coming through. I grabbed Lisa's arm. "Lisa, we are going to die if we don't do something." Lisa looked at me, then at the window, and I instantly knew what she was thinking. "No," I whispered. "No way. That's a 2-story drop." Lisa gave me a look. "Would you rather take your chances with them?" Another loud crack. The door was halfway gone. Lisa ran to the window, threw it open, and looked down. The backyard. A small ledge. A 10-foot drop onto grass. "Go," she ordered. Now. I swallowed my fear, grabbed the windowsill, and jumped. The air rushed past me, then thud. I hit the ground hard, pain exploding in my ankle. Lisa landed right beside me a second later. Above us, the attacker burst through the door. Lisa grabbed my hand and yanked me up. "Run!" We sprinted. Through the backyard. Over the hedge. Onto the sidewalk. A black SUV screeched around the corner. Lisa shoved me toward it. The back door swung open. A woman in a black suit was inside, holding a gun. Lisa jumped in, pulling me with her. The SUV peeled out, tires screeching as bullets pinged off the pavement behind us. I was shaking. "Who is she?" The woman turned, lowering her gun. "An ally," she said. "And if you want to live, you need to listen very carefully." Lisa crossed her arms, still catching her breath. "Start talking," she said. The woman met Lisa's gaze. "You just exposed something bigger than you can imagine." Lisa's eyes flicked to me. I gulped. Oh God, this was just the beginning. The SUV sped down the dark road, the headlights carving a path through the night. My heart was still hammering, my breaths coming in quick gasps. Lisa sat beside me, her jaw clenched, her fingers drumming impatiently against her knee. The woman in black, our so-called ally, kept her eyes fixed on the road ahead, her grip tight on the steering wheel. I swallowed hard. "Who are you?" The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached into her jacket and pulled out a sleek black badge. "FBI." My mouth went dry. "Oh crap." Lisa leaned forward, studying the badge with sharp eyes. "Name." The woman gave Lisa a half smirk, like she was impressed. "Agent Valerie Knox. Been investigating the HOA for over 3 years now." Lisa narrowed her eyes. "And you just happened to be in the area when we got attacked?" Knox's smirk faded. "We've been watching you, Carter, ever since you started poking around. You think you're the first lawyer to go up against them? You're not, but you're the first to get this far." I shivered. "What do you mean, this far?" Knox exhaled, gripping the wheel tighter. "Most people get buried before they even get a chance to fight back. Figuratively, and sometimes literally." I flinched. Lisa didn't. She crossed her arms, her voice low. "And yet, you haven't shut them down." Knox's jaw tightened. "They're protected." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "By who?" Knox glanced at us through the rearview mirror, then pressed a button on the dashboard. The car's built-in screen flickered to life, displaying grainy images, classified documents, pictures of men in suits shaking hands, stacks of money exchanging hands. Knox spoke in a clipped tone. "The HOA is a front. The fines? The violations? The so-called rules? It's all a cover for something much bigger. Money laundering, land theft, fraud. You name it, they're doing it." I felt my stomach turn. "But how? It's just a neighborhood organization. They don't have that much power, right?" Knox let out a hollow laugh. "Oh, they have plenty of power. Because they're not just some neighborhood committee. They're connected. They have judges, cops, real estate developers. Hell, even some politicians in their pocket. People who make problems disappear." Lisa leaned back, exhaling through her nose. "And Dunford?" Knox shook her head. "Just a cog in the machine. He thought he was in control, but he was just following orders." Lisa was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. "I want names." Knox smirked. "I thought you might." She reached in her bag and tossed Lisa a tablet. "Everything we've gathered so far. Every corrupt official. Every falsified HOA violation. Every victim they've ruined." Lisa scrolled through the files, her face unreadable. Then she froze. "Wait," she murmured. "I know this name." I leaned over to look. "Ethan Carter." My heart stopped. My father's name. Lisa's hands trembled. "Why is our dad's name in here?" Knox's face darkened. "Because he was one of the first people who tried to take them down. The words felt like a punch to the gut. Lisa's voice was barely a whisper. That's not possible. He died in a car accident when we were kids. Knox was silent. Lisa's hands gripped the tablet like a vice. Did they kill him? Knox exhaled. We don't know for sure. But we do know this. Your father was fighting against them. Hard. And then, poof, he's gone. Official cause of death? Accident. But the evidence? It's messy. Too messy. Lisa stared at the screen, her knuckles white. I could see it, the war waging inside her. The anger, the grief, the raw need for answers. Finally, she spoke. I'm taking them down. Knox raised an eyebrow. That's so. Lisa's eyes burned. You're damn right. Knox nodded approvingly. Then buckle up, Carter, because you just made yourself enemy number one. I swallowed hard. And what does that make me? Knox smirked. Collateral. I paled. Lisa turned to me, her eyes sharp. I'll keep you safe. No matter what. Knox gave a dry chuckle. Cute. But you don't get it, do you? Lisa's jaw clenched. Enlighten me. Knox's smirk faded. You're not just fighting them anymore. The second you opened Dunford's files, you triggered alarms. They know you have their secrets now. And they're not going to play nice anymore. Lisa met her gaze. Let them come. Knox tilted her head, studying her. Then she grinned. I like you. Lisa didn't smile back. Knox's expression turned serious again. You want to take them down? Fine. But we do it right. We do it smart. One wrong move, and they'll erase you like they erased your dad. Lisa held Knox's gaze. Then we don't make a wrong move. Knox chuckled. You're ambitious, I'll give you that. But you'll need more than ambition. You'll need proof. Real proof. Lisa nodded. And I know exactly where to get it. Knox raised an eyebrow. Do you now? Lisa's voice was ice. Dunford wasn't the top of the food chain. He was just an employee. She tapped the tablet. But this list? It leads to the real bosses. Knox grinned. And what's the plan? Lisa smirked. We're going to crash their next meeting. My stomach dropped. Lisa, that's insane. She ignored me. Knox, do you have a location? Knox hesitated, then smirked back. As a matter of fact, I do. She reached into her glove compartment and pulled out a small USB drive. Their next big meeting? Tomorrow night. Downtown. Private high-rise. Invite only. Lisa took the drive, her eyes gleaming. Perfect. I groaned. Lisa, this isn't a court case. These people try to kill us. We barely made it out alive. Lisa turned to me, her gaze firm. Exactly. Which is why we're not stopping. I shook my head. Lisa, this is suicide. Knox chuckled. Kid's not. You sure you're ready for this? Lisa met her gaze without hesitation. Oh, I'm ready. Knox smirked. Then let's raise some hell. Lisa looked at me, determination burning in her eyes. We end this, she said. I exhaled shakily. I knew there was no stopping her now. God help us. The SUV wove through the empty streets, the city lights flickering like distant stars. My pulse still pounded in my ears, my mind reeling from everything that had happened. The taser attack, the discovery of the blacklist, the masked attacker, and now, our father? It was too much. Lisa, however, sat still, staring at the USB drive like it held the answers to the universe. Knox, hands steady on the wheel, glanced at her. You know they're expecting you now, right? Knox said, after tonight, they'll double security. Triple it, even. Lisa smirked. Then I guess we'll have to be smarter than them. I groaned. Lisa, we're not going to some secret HOA mafia meeting like we're in a spy movie. Lisa turned to me, her expression deadly serious. Yes, we are. Lisa, these people try to kill us tonight. I snapped. We barely made it out alive. And now you want to walk into their headquarters? Are you insane? Lisa didn't flinch. We have no choice. Knox nodded. She's right. This is the closest we've ever been to cracking them. If we wait, they'll cover their tracks. I clench my fists. And if we don't wait, they'll kill us. Knox shrugged. Yeah, that's also possible. I turned to Lisa, desperate. Please, we can go to the actual police. The FBI? We have evidence. Lisa sighed, rubbing her temple. You really think the FBI can take them down? Half of the people on that blacklist are officials, judges, cops, attorneys. They own the system. Knox smirked. She's not wrong. The only reason I'm still alive is because I've played my cards right. But you? After tonight? You have a target on your back. I shivered. That's not comforting. Lisa turned back to Knox. Tell me about this meeting. Knox glanced at the clock. It's tomorrow night, high-rise downtown. Private floor. High security. Only verified HOA board members and their associates are allowed in. Lisa's lips curled into a smirk. Then we'll just have to become associates. Knox snorted. And how exactly do you plan on doing that? Lisa tapped the USB drive. There's got to be an access list, right? Knox tilted her head. Probably. But good luck faking biometric scans. Lisa's eyes gleamed. Then we don't fake it. We borrow it. I frowned. What does that mean? Lisa leaned forward. We need a high-ranking HOA member. Someone who has access. Knox whistled. You want to kidnap an HOA official? Lisa shrugged. Only temporarily. I bury my face in my hands. Oh my God. Knox chuckled. I like her. Lisa ignored us, already scanning the files on the tablet. Her eyes narrowed as she clicked on something. Bingo. She turned the screen to us. A profile popped up. Name, Henry Talbot. Position, HOA Financial Director. Access level, high priority. Lisa grinned. He's our guy. Knox whistled. That's a bold move. You do realize he's probably got security, right? Lisa smirked. Then we'll have to get creative. I threw my hands in the air. You're talking about kidnapping an HOA boss. That's not creative. That's a felony. Lisa shrugged. Well, so is attempted murder. And they started it. I groaned. You have lost your mind. Knox laughed. Kid, she lost it the second she decided to fight these guys. Lisa leaned forward. So Knox, you in? Knox grinned. Hell yeah. I slumped in my seat. I hate both of you. Lisa patted my shoulder. Good. Now, let's go commit some light kidnapping. I sighed. This was going to end so badly. We arrived at a dingy motel on the outskirts of town. Knox had chosen it for one reason. No cameras. No records. No questions. Lisa tossed her jacket onto the bed and pulled out her laptop. Knox grabbed a duffel bag from the trunk and dumped it onto the table. I stared. What is that? Knox grinned. Gear. I swallowed hard. Inside were gloves, zip ties, a voice scrambler, and a taser. I paled. We are not torturing him. Knox rolled her eyes. Relax, kid. We're just borrowing him for a few hours. Lisa didn't seem fazed. We just need his face and fingerprints to get into the meeting. Then we let him go. I sighed. And how do you plan on getting close enough to grab him? Lisa smirked. I have a plan. Knox grinned. Oh, this I gotta hear. Lisa leaned forward. Henry Talbot has a daily routine. Breakfast at the same cafe every morning. Same seat. Same order. He's predictable. That's our advantage. Knox raised an eyebrow. And Lisa grinned. We poison his coffee. My jaw dropped. Knox let out a bark of laughter. I like you, Carter. Lisa shrugged. Just a little sleeping agent. He knocks out. We grab him. And we're golden. I ran my hands down my face. This is so illegal. Knox smirked. Kid, you're in it now. No backing out. I groaned. Lisa tapped the table. All right. We hit him tomorrow morning. We get in. We expose them. And we end this. Knox nodded. No mistakes. Lisa's eyes darkened. No mistakes. I swallowed hard. God help us all. Morning came fast. Too fast. I barely got any sleep. My mind racing with everything we were about to do. My sister, the fearless lawyer, was about to drug and kidnap a high-ranking HOA official so we could break into a secret meeting full of corrupt elites who literally tried to kill us. This was insanity. Lisa, on the other hand, was calm. Too calm. She sat at the motel's tiny desk, typing away on her laptop, sipping coffee like she was preparing for a casual court case instead of a literal crime. Knox was assembling supplies, stuffing gloves, and zip ties into a small bag. She looked way too comfortable doing this, which made me seriously question what she did in the FBI before this. I rubbed my face. So, tell me again how we're doing this? Lisa didn't even look up. It's simple. Nothing about this is simple, I muttered. She ignored me. Henry Talbot eats breakfast at the same cafe every day, like clockwork. He always gets cappuccino. We slip a little something into his drink, he gets drowsy, knocks, and I help him to his car like concerned bystanders. And boom, he's ours for the next few hours. I groaned. This is so illegal. Knox snorted. Kid, at this point, illegal is the least of your worries. Lisa finally looked up, her eyes sharp. We don't have time for doubts. We do this fast, clean, and quiet. The longer we sit around, the more time the HOA has to prepare for us. I sighed. Fine. But just so you know, if we get caught, I'm blaming both of you. Lisa smirked. Duly noted. Knox checked her watch. All right, let's move. We've got a billionaire's breakfast to crash. We parked a few blocks away from Café Monette, a fancy, overpriced coffee shop downtown, where people wore suits just to eat eggs. Henry Talbot was already there, sitting at his usual table by the window. The guy was every bit the snobby executive I expected. Polished suit, slicked back hair, a Rolex that probably cost more than my college tuition. Lisa nudged me. Watch and learn. I swallowed hard as she strolled casually into the cafe. Knox and I waited outside, watching through the window. Lisa didn't sit. She walked straight to the counter, but as she did, she casually glanced over Talbot's table, studying everything. The way he held his cup, the waiter who served him, how long he took between sips. Then, in one fluid movement, she dropped something into his cappuccino as she walked past. My stomach dropped. It was so smooth, so effortless, that even I barely saw it happen. Lisa didn't stop. She walked straight back outside, grabbed her own drink from the pickup counter, and rejoined us. Done, she said, sipping her coffee. Knox raised an eyebrow. Damn, you're good. Lisa shrugged. I have experience. I blinked. What? Lisa smirked. Relax, it's not poison. Just a mild sedative. He'll feel sleepy in about 5 minutes, and we'll be there to help him to his car. I exhaled sharply. You worry me sometimes. Knox chuckled. I like her. We waited. Talbot took another sip, then another, and then it happened. He paused, blinking rapidly. He rubbed his temples, shifting in his seat. His fingers trembled as he reached for his cup again, but he missed and nearly knocked it over. Knox smirked. Showtime. Lisa nodded. Let's move. Talbot stumbled out of the cafe, looking like he had just run a marathon in his sleep. Lisa and Knox rushed forward, catching him before he collapsed. Sir, are you all right? Lisa asked, her voice so convincingly concerned. Talbot groaned, rubbing his face. I don't feel good. Knox took his other arm. Let's get you to your car, buddy. Talbot barely resisted as they guided him toward the parking lot. I hurried behind them, my heart hammering. This was really happening. They got him to his sleek black Mercedes and eased him into the back seat. Lisa pulled out a small syringe. I gawked. What is that? Lisa sighed. Just a little extra to keep him out for a while. We need time. Before I could argue, she jabbed it into his neck. Talbot let out a weak grunt, then slumped. I panicked. Did you just? He's fine, Lisa said flatly. He'll wake up in a few hours with a mild headache. Knox smirked, cold-blooded. I like it. I held my head in my hands. Oh my God, we're criminals now. Lisa ignored me and pulled out a scanning device for Knox's bag. Knox handed her Talbot's wrist. Lisa pressed his fingers against the scanner. A little beep. A green check mark flashed on the screen. We got his biometrics, Lisa confirmed. Now we just need his face for the security cams. Knox grinned. I got that covered. She reached in her bag and pulled out a 3D facial mask. I blinked. What is that? Knox shrugged. Black market tech. It's an ultra-thin mask that molds to your face and mimics someone else's features. Makes you look like them for security cameras. Lisa took the mask and pressed it against her face. It shifted, and suddenly, she looked exactly like Henry Talbot. I gasped. That's insane. Lisa smirked. And highly illegal, but effective. Knox grinned. All right, we're set. Time to crash the party. I groaned. We are going to die. Lisa patted my shoulder. Then let's make it count. Knox tossed Talbot into the back of his car, locking the doors behind him. Sweet dreams, buddy. Lisa pulled up the meeting location on her phone. All right, she said, adjusting her disguise. Let's go take down the HOA mafia. I gulped. We were about to walk into the lion's den. The black SUV rumbled down the highway, the city skyline glowing in the distance. The high-rise where the HOA mafia meeting was being held loomed ahead, its tinted windows hiding whatever secrets lurked inside. I sat in the back seat, my knee bouncing uncontrollably. My brain was still catching up with the insanity of what we had just done. We had just kidnapped an HOA official. Lisa was now wearing his face thanks to some freaky high-tech mask. And we were about to infiltrate a room full of corrupt billionaires who had tried to kill us. This wasn't a court case anymore. This was war. Lisa adjusted the mask in the rearview mirror. Her face, no, Henry Talbot's face, stared back. The mask even mimicked his slight wrinkles, his skin tone, everything. "This is terrifying," I muttered. Knox smirked. "Welcome to the big leagues, kid." Lisa's voice came out perfectly identical to Talbot's. "Are we clear on the plan?" I shuddered. "That's so creepy." Lisa ignored me. Knox nodded. Yeah. You walk in as Talbot, use his biometric scan to get to the private floor, and get as much intel as you can. I'll be monitoring from the van. She pointed at me. "Keep your mouth shut and don't do anything stupid." I groaned. "That's literally all I do." Lisa smirked. "Then try something new." I exhaled sharply. "And what happens if we get caught?" Knox's expression darkened. "Then we don't make it out alive." Silence. The SUV slowed as we approached the high-rise. Lisa turned to me, her expression unreadable beneath the mask. "This is it. Last chance to back out." I hesitated. I really wanted to say yes. To run. To pretend none of this was happening. But then I remembered. The taser. The blacklist. The masked attacker. The truth about Dad. I clenched my fists. "No backing out," I said. "Let's end this." Lisa nodded. "All right, let's crash this party." We stepped out of the SUV, dressed to blend in. Lisa, disguised as Henry Talbot, wore a sleek black suit. I followed close behind in a formal outfit that Knox had forcibly shoved into my hands earlier. Lisa walked with purpose, her posture mimicking Talbot's stiff, confident gait. She was scarily good at this. A valet nodded as we approached the entrance. "Mr. Talbot, welcome." Lisa gave a slight nod, not breaking stride. We walked into the towering lobby, a massive chandelier gleaming overhead. Businessmen, investors, and dangerous-looking men in suits milled about, talking in hushed tones. I swallowed hard. "Lisa." She didn't respond. She just kept walking. We reached the private elevator at the back of the lobby. A tall security guard stood in front of it, arms crossed. Lisa, still in full Talbot mode, pulled out his ID badge and placed it against the scanner. A soft beep. The guard barely glanced at us before stepping aside. Lisa turned to me. "Act natural." I forced a painfully fake smile. "Sure, nothing's wrong. We're totally not committing high-level fraud." Lisa rolled her eyes and pressed the button. The elevator dinged, the doors sliding open. We stepped inside. As soon as the doors closed, my panic exploded. "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my." Lisa slapped a hand over my mouth. "Shut up." I nodded aggressively. She released me and pulled out her phone. "Knox, we're in." Knox's voice crackled through the earpiece. "Copy that. You've got about 10 minutes before they figure out Talbot's missing. Move fast." Lisa tucked the phone away. The elevator dinged, and the doors slid open to a darkened penthouse floor. I stepped out and immediately felt like I had walked into a villain's lair. The massive conference room stretched before us, a sleek glass table in the center. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed a breathtaking view of the city, but I had no time to admire it, because the room was filled with them. The HOA Mafia. 20, maybe 30 men and women sat in black leather chairs, dressed in power and corruption. Suits that cost more than most cars. Watches that gleamed under the chandelier. Lisa didn't hesitate. She strode forward and took an empty seat like she belonged there. I froze. "Sit down," Lisa hissed under her breath. I scrambled into the seat beside her, trying not to pass out. A man at the head of the table stood. He was older, with a gray beard and sharp eyes that could cut through steel. "We have a problem," he announced. My stomach dropped. Lisa kept her face unreadable. "What kind of problem?" The man, clearly the boss, folded his hands. "Someone's been digging too deep into our operations." I nearly choked. Lisa leaned forward. "And how do you propose we deal with it?" The boss smirked. "The usual way." My hands turned ice cold. The man gestured and a security guard stepped forward, placing a file on the table. Lisa reached for it, but the boss shook his head. "No need, Henry. You already know who it is." Lisa froze. Then, the boss flipped the folder open, and inside, Lisa's face. My stomach plummeted. The boss smiled coldly. "Lisa Carter, the lawyer who just won't die." Lisa didn't move. I could barely breathe. Knox's voice crackled in our earpieces. "Abort! Abort! Get out now!" Lisa slowly leaned back in her chair. The boss chuckled. "She's been causing issues. Our last enforcement didn't do the trick. So I say we handle it here and now." The guards moved. Lisa's eyes flashed. Then, she flipped the table. Papers, glasses, and coffee cups went flying. I barely had time to process what was happening before Lisa yanked my arm and bolted. Gunshots exploded behind us. "Go, go, go!" Lisa yelled. We sprinted toward the elevator, just as the doors began closing. Lisa leaped forward, jamming her hand between the doors. They slid open. We dived inside. Lisa slammed the emergency close button. The doors shut, just as a guard lunged for us. I collapsed against the wall, gasping. "Lisa, what the hell?" Lisa ripped off the Talbot mask, her face returning to normal. Knox's voice crackled. "Meet me at the escape point. Now!" Lisa turned to me. Her eyes burned. "They want me dead?" she hissed. I swallowed hard. "Yeah, obviously." Lisa gritted her teeth. "Then I'm taking all of them down." The elevator shot downward, the hum of the machinery barely registering over the pounding of my heart. I was breathless, my thoughts a chaotic whirlwind of gunshots, shouting, and betrayal. Lisa was calm, too calm. Her face, once filled with the stress of the mission, was now a mask of cold determination. She pulled off the Talbot mask and stuffed it in her bag, her fingers shaking just slightly. We had almost made it, almost escaped. But now, I couldn't help but wonder if we were being hunted. I had no idea how far these people would go to protect their empire. Lisa's eyes flicked to me, her expression unreadable. "Breathe." I opened my mouth to speak, but she held up a hand. "We'll be fine." I swallowed. "You say that, but they just—" "Shut up." I blinked. Her voice was sharp, but there was something almost comforting about it. A reminder that Lisa had a plan, that she always did. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. But as the elevator neared the ground floor, my stomach churned. Knox's voice crackled through our earpieces. 5 minutes. We're in position. Lisa's gaze hardened. "Let's go." The elevator doors slid open, revealing the sleek, high-end lobby of the building. No one was in sight. It was quiet, too quiet. The tension in the air felt thick enough to cut. We stepped out into the lobby, our footsteps echoing on the marble floors. Lisa didn't hesitate. She walked straight toward the back exit. "Keep up," she said. I jogged to catch up, trying to push down the fear that gripped my chest. My mind was still racing. Had we done enough? Will we get away clean? Or had we just unleashed something much worse than we could handle? As we rounded the corner, I saw the black SUV waiting for us at the curb. Knox was in the driver's seat, her eyes scanning the surroundings. She didn't look up as we approached, but I could see the tension in her posture. Lisa didn't even break stride as she reached the door and pulled it open. I followed her inside, slamming the door behind me. Knox turned the key in the ignition, and the car sped off. I slumped back in my seat, exhaling shakily. We made it. Lisa remained silent, her eyes focused ahead, but I could see the faintest flicker of emotion behind her usual stoic expression. "We're not done," she said quietly. I froze. "What?" She didn't answer, but her fingers clenched around the seatbelt. I could almost feel the weight of her thoughts pressing against the air. "Lisa, we got what we needed." She turned to me then, her gaze sharp, cold. "No, you don't understand. This goes deeper than we thought." I swallowed hard. "What are you talking about?" She took a deep breath. "The guy at the table, the boss, the one who said we were the problem, he's not just some HOA head honcho. That man was behind my father's death. He was the one orchestrating everything from the beginning. It's all connected." I blinked, my mind struggling to process what she was saying. "Your father? What do you mean?" Lisa's voice was low but fierce. "When they took him out, they didn't just want him gone. They wanted to send a message. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. What kind of message? She looked at me, and for the first time since all this started, I saw real anger in her eyes. That if you mess with the HOA, if you dig too deep, they'll bury you. They'll erase anyone who gets in their way. The weight of her words hit me like a ton of bricks. My mind raced, trying to grasp the enormity of what Lisa was saying. Wait, you're saying they killed your dad because of the HOA? Lisa's jaw clenched. I'm saying they were part of it. They engineered his downfall. They planted the seeds. And now that I'm coming for them, they'll do everything they can to stop me. I felt my throat tighten. So what happens now? Lisa stared straight ahead. We finish this. We take them down, once and for all. No more running. No more hiding. Knox glanced over her shoulder, her face tight. We got 5 minutes before we hit the next stop. Are you ready? Lisa nodded, her face hardening. Let's do this. The car stopped in front of a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of town, its broken windows and peeling paint looking like it hadn't been touched in decades. Lisa stepped out first, with Knox and me following closely behind. The building looked like it was abandoned, but I knew better. Inside, it was deadly silent, the air thick with suspicion. The last time we'd been in a place like this, it had been a trap. Knox pulled out a small device and tapped it, and the door to the warehouse creaked open with a low groan. Lisa motioned for us to follow. We moved quickly through the dusty corridors, each footstep echoing like a drumbeat in the quiet. I was almost holding my breath, expecting something, anything to go wrong. Then we reached a set of heavy metal doors at the back of the building. Knox pushed a button on her sleeve, and the doors swung open. Inside, it was a stark contrast to the dilapidated exterior. The room was well lit, full of high-tech equipment, computers, monitors, and servers humming softly in the background. At the center of the room was a man in a chair. I froze. It was the man from the meeting, the boss. He was sitting there, hands tied behind his back, looking entirely too calm for someone in his position. Lisa stepped forward. So we meet again. He grinned. You really think this is the end, don't you? Lisa's expression didn't change. I don't think it's the end. I know it is. The room went dead. He leaned forward, his smirk widening. You're not the first to come after me. You won't be the last. But you'll be the last one standing. Lisa didn't flinch. Let's find out. And then, the lights went out. The warehouse plunged into total darkness, and for a split second, all I could hear was the pounding of my heart. My breath came in sharp, ragged gasps as I tried to adjust to the absence of light. I felt the cold metal floor beneath my feet, my senses heightened, on edge. I was suddenly aware of every sound, the faint hum of machinery, the soft rustle of clothes as someone shifted, the rapid breathing coming from the three of us. Then came a voice. I wouldn't move if I were you, the boss said, his voice cool and collected in the dark. I felt my pulse quicken. What do you mean? Lisa's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. Did you really think you could get away with this? He asked, his grin audible. I've been preparing for this for years. You're playing a game you can't win. Lisa's voice was unwavering. We'll see about that. Suddenly, the lights flashed back on, blinding me for a moment. When I could finally see clearly, I saw him again. The boss, but this time his hands weren't tied. He was sitting upright, but there was no sign of the guards or anyone else. I felt a sense of dread ripple through me. Where are they? I whispered, turning toward Lisa and Knox. Lisa didn't answer. Her eyes were narrowed, scanning the room like a hawk. It's a trap, she said, her voice low. Before any of us could react, the doors slammed shut behind us with a heavy, echoing bang. Knox's hand instinctively went for her weapon, but the boss chuckled, standing up. He wasn't fazed. Your little rescue mission is over. My men are everywhere. His smirk widened. Welcome to my game. I looked around, feeling the walls closing in. There were no windows, no easy exits. The only way out was the door, and it was locked. I swallowed hard, trying to control my panic. What do you want from us? The boss stepped forward, his eyes cold. Oh, I don't want anything. It's you who's made the mistake. You've exposed me, Carter. You took everything from me. Lisa's eyes flashed with recognition. You're the one who... He raised his hand, cutting her off. Yes, Lisa. I orchestrated your father's death, and now I'm going to make you pay for it. I felt my stomach twist. This is about revenge? The boss laughed, the sound echoing through the room. It's about power. You think you're going to destroy me? You think you've won? I've been operating at this level for years. You're just a blip on the radar, Carter. Lisa didn't flinch. I'm not afraid of you. The boss smiled, but there was no humor in it. You should be. And then, without warning, the lights flickered again. This time, something felt different. The air seemed heavier, more oppressive. Before I could react, I heard movement. A screeching sound echoed from the far side of the room, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps. Knox immediately turned around, her hand reaching for her gun, but before she could act, the air was filled with noise. It sounded like machines whirring, like gears grinding. I looked toward the corner of the room, my heart hammering. There was something there, something big. The shadow shifted, and then a wall panel slid open, revealing armed men in tactical gear. My breath caught in my throat. They were waiting for us. Of course, the boss sneered. I told you, this is my game, not yours. The men moved swiftly, surrounding us. Knox tried to make a move, but a gun was pointed directly at her. I could see the fear in her eyes. This wasn't a situation that could be easily solved with firepower. Drop it! One of the men shouted, his voice clipped and urgent. Knox lowered her weapon slowly, her face a mask of controlled anger. You don't know who you're messing with. The boss's expression never wavered. Oh, I know exactly who I'm messing with. You're all dead. The realization hit me like a punch to the stomach. We had fallen right into their trap. There was no way out. Lisa, still standing tall, took a step forward. If you think you can just walk away from this, you're wrong. We've already exposed you, and we've got everything we need to bring you down. The boss tilted his head slightly. You think I'm worried about exposure? Lisa's voice was ice. I think you should be. Before he could respond, I heard a distant noise. At first, I thought it was my imagination, like a dull hum coming from outside. But then it grew louder. The ground seemed to shake beneath us. Knox looked toward the door. What the hell is that? The boss's eyes narrowed. It's nothing. Just a little something I set up for anyone who dares challenge me. I looked at Lisa, but she didn't have time to answer. A moment later, the wall beside us exploded outward, sending debris flying everywhere. I threw myself to the ground instinctively, covering my head. Get down! Lisa shouted. We scrambled, but it was too late. Dust and smoke filled the air, and everything seemed to be moving in slow motion. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't hear anything but the ringing in my ears. Then, a voice pierced through the chaos. It was deep, booming, a commanding presence. Everyone stay where you are. I froze. That voice, I knew it. I turned my head slowly, trying to see through the smoke. My heart skipped a beat when I saw him. A man in full tactical gear, his face hidden behind a mask. He moved with purpose, his steps measured, precise. Lisa's eyes widened. No way. The man removed his mask, and there, standing in front of us, was someone I had never expected to see again. Well, he said, a smirk on his lips. I see you've made a mess of things, Carter. It was Detective Tom Harris. I froze. My heart skipped a beat, and my body went stiff with shock. Detective Tom Harris. The same detective who had been investigating the case surrounding my father's death. Someone I thought I could trust. But there he was, standing before us, his mask now removed, revealing the face of someone I once believed to be an ally. Lisa's voice cut through the tension. What the hell are you doing here, Harris? Harris's eyes locked with hers, and the coldness in them made me shiver. You really don't get it, do you, Carter? I've been watching you, waiting for the right moment to take you down. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words caught in my throat. How could this be happening? Harris, the detective who was supposed to help us find answers, was now standing on the other side. Lisa took a step forward, her posture tight with anger. You were part of this from the beginning, weren't you? You helped them. You helped them kill my father. Harris smirked, his face hardening. I didn't kill your father, Lisa, but I sure as hell helped make sure the people who did got away with it. I felt a chill run down my spine. Every instinct screamed at me that we were in way deeper than we had ever imagined. How long, Harris? Lisa's voice was quiet but laced with venom. How long have you been working with them? Harris didn't flinch. Long enough to know who has the power around here. Long enough to know who runs things. I couldn't take it anymore. Why? I spat. Why did you do it? All this, helping the HOA, protecting them? You were supposed to be on our side. He looked at me, and his eyes were filled with an eerie calm. Your side? He chuckled darkly. I don't have a side. I'm on the side that wins. I took a step back, the words hitting me like a punch to the stomach. So this was all about the money? He nodded slowly. And power. Power is the one thing that never runs out. Lisa clenched her fists, her knuckles white. You disgust me. Harris shrugged, unfazed. I'm not the one who should be disgusted. You walked right into this trap, Carter. And now, well, he paused, his lips curling into a cold smile. Now, I'm here to make sure it's the last mistake you ever make. Before Lisa or I could react, the armed guard began to move forward. Their guns were trained on us, their eyes cold and calculating. Don't do it, Lisa warned, her voice low but steady. You could still walk away from this. You don't have to go through with it. But Harris wasn't listening. He gave a slight nod, and the guards moved even closer, their weapons ready. A cold sweat broke out on the back of my neck. This wasn't just some threat anymore. We were completely surrounded. There was nowhere to run. Knox's voice crackled in our earpieces, sharp and urgent. Lisa, get out of there now. They're setting up for a bigger play. Too late. Lisa muttered under her breath, her gaze never leaving Harris. We're not going anywhere. Harris smirked again, as if he had been waiting for this exact moment. You think you're in control, Carter? You think you're the one calling the shots. He stepped forward, his voice cold. You're nothing. Just another pawn in a game that's already been won. Something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. I wasn't going to let him win. I reached for the only weapon I had left, my own voice. Do you know what you just done? I demanded. You've just exposed everything. You've been working for the wrong side. You're about to go down with them. For a brief moment, Harris's smirk faltered, but only for a second, and then he laughed. The sound of his laughter echoed in the dim, tense room, and for a second, I thought I might go mad. Do you really think I care about exposure? He said, wiping a tear from his eye. I've already made my deal. I'm untouchable. The guards closed in on us, and I had a horrible, sinking feeling in my chest. Lisa's voice was low but firm. You're not untouchable, Harris. You just haven't realized it yet. Enough talk, Harris spat. Take them. As the guards lunged forward, Lisa didn't hesitate. She grabbed my arm and yanked me toward the exit. No more waiting, no more trying to reason with these people. The guards were quick, but Lisa was quicker. She pulled me toward the side of the room, where we had spotted a small ventilation shaft earlier, the only potential escape route we'd noticed. We were almost there when the sound of footsteps rang out behind us. Don't even think about it, Harris's voice shouted, filled with fury. I turned around, breath catching in my throat. The guards were close, their guns drawn. But Lisa was already making her move, pushing me toward the ventilation shaft and crawling through it with ease. I followed right behind her, the tight space barely allowing us to move, but the sound of gunshots outside made it all feel like a race against time. As we crawled through the tunnel, I could feel the walls closing in. My muscles screamed in protest, but there was no turning back now. We had no choice but to keep moving forward. Suddenly, the tunnel opened up, and we found ourselves in a narrow alleyway. The sound of the chaos inside still echoed behind us, but at least we were out. We didn't stop running. We sprinted down the alley, the sounds of sirens now joining the commotion from the warehouse. Lisa didn't look back, her pace steady and purposeful. How are we getting out of here? I gasped, barely able to keep up. Lisa didn't break stride. We don't need to get out of here. We just need to stay one step ahead. Ahead of us, Knox's black SUV came into view. The door opened, and Knox waved us over urgently. Lisa glanced at me, her eyes sharp. You still with me? I nodded, my chest heaving, but the adrenaline was already kicking in. Always. We climbed into the SUV, the engine roaring to life as Knox slammed the door shut behind us. The city skyline loomed ahead, but we weren't out of the woods yet. Harris wasn't just a detective. He was a dangerous man, and now We had to deal with the fallout of everything he had just exposed. But there was something else gnawing at me. Something worse than just the mission we had been on. "We've got what we need," Lisa said, her voice eerily calm. "But we still need to destroy them. Every last one of them." Knox glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "You sure about this? You know they won't just sit back." Lisa's lips curved into a cold, determined smile. "Then we make them pay." The streets blurred outside the SUV as we sped away from the warehouse, the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on me. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being followed. But then again, we had always been a step behind. Now it was time to change that. Lisa sat beside me, her eyes sharp and focused, her jaw set in that familiar way that told me she was already planning our next move. Knox was driving, her hands steady on the wheel, her face expressionless. She was the quiet type, but I could see the same cold determination in her eyes that I saw in Lisa's. "We're not done yet," Lisa said quietly, breaking the silence. I swallowed hard. "What now?" She turned to me, her expression hardening. "We take down the whole system. Every last one of them." I had no idea how she planned to do it, but one thing I did know, Lisa never backed down from a fight. Knox glanced at Lisa. "How are we doing this?" Lisa pulled out her phone and tapped a few buttons. A moment later, a map appeared on the screen. "We have to go to the top." I frowned. "The top?" "Yes." She paused. "I've been piecing everything together. Harris, Dunford, and all the others, they're just pawns. The real power lies with a board of directors, and they're the ones making all the calls. They control everything: money, land, influence." "So what's the plan?" I asked, my heart racing. Lisa looked at me, her eyes hard. "We're going after the board." "Ow!" Knox asked, clearly intrigued. Lisa turned the map toward her and began pointing. "We go in. We expose them. We take their secrets, and we make sure the whole world knows who they are." Knox nodded, a grin tugging at her lips. "Sounds like a fun day." I didn't know if fun was the right word, but I was in. I had no other choice. Lisa had become more than just a sister to me. She had become a force of nature, and I wasn't about to stand on the sidelines. We drove for what felt like hours, each mile pulling us deeper into enemy territory. The board of directors had their meeting in an office building downtown, one of the tallest structures in the city. It was surrounded by luxury, power, and secrecy, a perfect place for the corrupt to operate. The plan was simple: get in, get the information, and get out. But we all knew it wouldn't be that easy. By the time we reached the building, it was already late. The night sky was dark, but the city glowed beneath us. Lisa, Knox, and I approached the entrance like we had done this 100 times before. The security guards at the door barely glanced at us as we flashed fake IDs. Lisa was an expert at this kind of thing, and her presence was commanding enough to make anyone second-guess questioning her. Inside, the place was eerily quiet. The entire building seemed to be set up for surveillance. Every corner had a camera, every door had a security pass. But we had a strategy. Lisa led the way, confidently moving through the hallways, her steps quick but calculated. She had studied every inch of this building, every move the board made, and now she was ready. We reached a set of elevator doors, and Lisa pressed the button. The elevator dinged, and the doors slid open. We stepped inside without hesitation, and she pressed the button for the top floor, the board's meeting space. I could feel the tension in the air as we ascended. I glanced at Knox and saw that her jaw was tight, her eyes scanning the numbers as the elevator climbed higher. Finally, the elevator doors opened. We were standing in front of a set of glass doors, the sleek office of the board in full view. Inside, men and women in expensive suits sat around a table, talking in hushed tones. The room was lit with opulence, the kind of wealth that came from legality. "Now," Lisa said quietly, her voice steady, "we make them pay." With one swift movement, she swiped a key card from her bag, a counterfeit she had prepared earlier, and swiped it through the reader by the door. The doors slid open. The moment they did, everything stopped. The board members looked up in surprise, their expressions changing from calm to shock in the blink of an eye. Lisa stepped forward, her voice calm but full of authority. "We're here to shut you down." One of the board members, an older man with silver hair, stood up slowly, his face betraying his disbelief. "You don't know who you're messing with. You think you can just walk in here and—" Lisa didn't let him finish. She slammed a flash drive onto the table in front of them, the evidence of their entire criminal operation. "Everything you've done is on this," she said. "Money laundering, fraud, corruption, the truth, all of it." I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. These were the people who had ruined lives, who had brought us here, who had tried to destroy my sister. But now was our turn. The board members stood frozen, the realization hitting them all at once. One of them, the man at the head of the table, moved toward the door, clearly trying to escape. But Knox was faster. She reached for the button on her earpiece. "Now," she said. The lights in the building flashed. Sirens began to blare. Security guards flooded the hall, but it was already too late. The evidence was out there. The truth was exposed. The entire system was about to come crumbling down. Lisa looked at the board members one last time, her gaze cold. "You've lost. You can run, but you can't hide." And with that, we turned and left. By the time we reached the exit, the building was swarming with police, reporters, and investigators. The world would finally see what the HOA and its backers had done. We made it to the SUV, and as the doors closed behind us, I leaned back in my seat, exhausted but somehow satisfied. Lisa glanced at me, her eyes flickering with something I hadn't seen before. Peace. "We did it," she said softly. I nodded. "We did." And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. We had won. The fight was over. The corruption had been exposed, and no one would ever forget what we had done. We were free.